Welcome to our CDBG Community Development Block Grant Workshop. My name is Vilma Martinez Dominguez. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Lawrence. And with me today, we have several members of our team. Susan Fink, who's the Manager of Finance and Administrative Services. And she's going to be doing a lot of the presentation today, the workshop. Sue actually served as the acting director before my time, and we have been working together for a while in my previous capacity. So I have also a lot to learn still about CDBG. Also Kate King, who's the finance officer. She's also going to be presenting today. And Marisol Colon, who you saw at the entrance, and she's a project officer. She really is the person that manages, actually, all the CDBG for this particular program, public services component. So thank you for being here today. Why do we put this workshop together? Basically, is to provide you ample information about the CDBG grant. I know I spoke to some of you. For some of you, this is the first time. For others, this is not your first round doing this, but really fairly new, and others probably have applied for this grant before, but really to give you information about it. You learn more about the eligible activities, what's allowed, not allowed, what are some of the requirements that you need to meet in order to submit your application and be an application that really fits what we're looking for. And also look at the process after this, because now after this, there's going to be a series of things happening. The very next thing is the deadline for the submission of the application, which is February 2nd. And after that, there's going to be also a sort of a public hearing where you get a few minutes to really, provide a snapshot of the project that you're applying for. And that's going to be on February 12th. So I think you guys will provide more information about that. But those are very important dates. You need to be at those. You definitely need to be at the public hearing in order to get your application. So it's part of the requirement for the submission. So, and also to answer any questions you may have, clarify any questions you may have. That's really what we hear today. So the Community Development Department is under the umbrella of the Office of Planning and Development, along with the Inspectional Services and Economic Development. Excuse me. And basically, our role is to focus on enhancing the physical environment and improving the quality of life for our city, for residents of our city, with particular focus with the CDBG to low and moderate income families. We have a very diverse community and very complex, but very rich community. So this, in my opinion, this grant really plays to that. It's flexible enough, as long as you meet some of the requirements, it's flexible enough for communities to come up with some great ideas what works best in our community based on the programs and the population that we have. We also administer other grants that are federally funded, such as the home investment partnerships, which really offers housing development, housing rehab, and first-time homeowners. We also have an ESG grant, which is an emergency solutions grant. It was changed now to that name, as well as a lead abatement program. So we have other programs. You can go visit the City of Lawrence page, cityoflawrence.com. And you can look under the Office of Planning and Development, Community Development, and you see a list of all the programs that we offer. A lot of our programs really cater to people who are low income, as I mentioned, low and moderate income. So we're looking at really anywhere between 30 to 80% of the area median income, and that information you can also look up, and it's also in your application. CDBG is pretty unique for over 40 years, actually. It's a cornerstone program that where the federal government really partners with local government and municipalities to across the nation to improve the quality of life of people in our communities. And it is a flexible program to develop, basically promote economic investment, neighborhood revitalization, and really safe and affordable housing. So What are some of the priority needs? We went over this when we had our first meeting, but basically all the programs really, because they're HUD funded, this is the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, we have to meet the national objectives. And national objectives are creating suitable living environments, provide decent housing, and create economic opportunities. So those are sort of like the sort of bigger objectives for HUD. And then every 5 years, each city, each municipality that receives funding needs to put together like a strategic plan, like a consolidated plan to help identify what are the needs of the community, and also to establish affordable housing and community development priorities. So we have developed our priorities, and the current consolidated plan that we're working on, the fiscal year 19 will be the 4th year. And basically, there are certain priorities that were selected through that process of either public meetings, soliciting input in different ways, soliciting public input in different ways. So economic development, affordable housing, public parks, facilities, and infrastructure, and homeless services are among the priorities that were selected for the city. The one that you're here for today really focuses on public service. So really, how can we increase access to services to the community, and particularly people who are low and moderate income, and youth, seniors, and other at-risk vulnerable populations. So that's what we're here for today. For Lawrence, Mayor Rivera has really prioritized 2 areas which you have in your application. One is youth development, and the other one is ESOL classes. Those sort of rise to the top when it comes to the applications, but there are 5 different categories that you can apply for. And then we have about $210,000 available through this RFP process, and each grant could vary based on the category, either anywhere between $10,000 and $30,000. So you have the categories on the application. It tells you each category what's the minimum, maximum that you can apply for. So this is just an overview, and that was my role for today. And now, without further ado, I'm going to I'll bring Sue Fink and later on Kate, who will talk about more of the details of the project. Before I have them on, there's 2 pieces of information in front of at the entrance, which I hope you took one. It's the Howard Place Day. We're going to be seeking public input for the Howard Place Day in Lawrence, and that's going to be next Thursday, January 18th at 6 o'clock at the Lawrence Senior Center. And also information about our Neighborhood Innovation Grant, which is a brand new grant that's available. The deadline is next Tuesday. That's for smaller scale projects. And I think it's $1,500, and it's anywhere between beautification and collaborative projects. So more information at the table. Please feel free to ask any questions to me if you have any for those projects. And thank you very much.
So as Vilma indicated, the CDBG grant is from the Department of Housing and Urban Development and is allocated by Congress in the federal budget process. We do a 5-year consolidated plan to determine needs and priorities. And then each year we have to do an annual action plan, which tells HUD how we're going to spend the funds in the upcoming fiscal year. So this RFP process is part of the annual action plan. If you look on page 7 in the RFP, you'll see the consolidated plan priorities, which economic development, public facilities, parks and open space, public infrastructure, affordable housing, public services. Under public services, there is a regulation that says we can only spend 15% of our grants on public service activities. So that's where we come up with this $210,000 number that you've heard us talk about. And each year we have to do a report to HUD called the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, or the CAPER, and tell them how we succeeded in meeting the plans that we set forth in the annual action plan.
So can each organization only apply for one?
No, you can fill in as many applications as you would like. There's no reason why you can't fill out more than one application. Oh, you can go, okay.
So for each program, you can apply for it, or you have to do it?
So if your organization runs a youth program, an ESOL program, an after-school program, you could fill in an application for each of those. So a little bit more about things in the application instructions. So the CDBG funds have to benefit people who are at 80% or less of area median income or live in a census tract where more than 51%, yay, of the residents are low mod. So all of the census tracts in Lawrence are eligible census tracts to do an area benefit activity, which means the activity would benefit the entire area, and you're not going to collect income information from clients. The only one that's not eligible is 2518, and that's in the Mount Vernon area. You can serve low-income people that live in the Mount Vernon area, but they would have to fill out an income verification to document that they are low income.
You want to put the application out?
Yep, so let's fill out an application. So this is a fake application that I have made up, and Kate is going to fill in as I speak. So on the first page of the application, you're going to fill in your organization name. Our organization is SCM Nonprofit. When it's not filling in. Oh, we're just having
More
a,
technical difficulties. Nope.
oh, here we go. A little lag there. So
SCM nonprofit.
SCM Nonprofit, and our project name is After School Homework Help.
Now, with everybody watching me, don't worry about my typing now.
Yeah, this is not a critique on Kate's typing
Because
skills.
you know my typing's gonna be terrible with everybody watching.
That's right, so don't look at her while she's typing, because that'll make her nervous. So our project address is at 123 Any Street in Lawrence.
I can't type on this thing.
And our applicant address is where our office is. So the project address is where you're actually going to do the project, and the applicant address is your office address. And our office is at 225 Essex Street. And you're going to fill in the email of the contact person. So if we had a question about your application, who would be the person that we would contact to ask the question? So you can make up an email address. And then your phone number and your fax number. Five 1212. So this is really the boring part of filling out the application, unfortunately. It's going to get much more exciting later on. We're going to ask for $10,000. If you have a website, you would put the address there. Then you would put your tax ID number, which you receive from the Internal Revenue. Does everybody here have a DUNS number? Okay. So then you would fill in your DUNS number. There are instructions in the application for those of you watching at home that don't have a DUNS number on how to obtain one. Then again, the contact person. And Susie Q is the executive director. And then again, the Susie Q's phone number and fax number would go here. And after Kate finishes typing in that number, we're going to show you a sample of each of the items that you need to submit with your application. So a lot of people get caught up in this. And it's very important that when you submit your application, we need one original and one copy. If you don't come with an original and a copy, your application will be refused. You'll have to go back and you'll have to leave and come back when you do have the original and the copy. Okay, so the first item is your articles of incorporation or your bylaws. So you're all familiar with this. You've all created bylaws, or you haven't necessarily personally created them, but your organization has bylaws. We need a copy of those. The next is a list of the current members of your board of directors, including their address. So this is all public information, so you are required to provide this to us. Next would be the evidence of your current annual report filed with the Secretary of the Commonwealth. So this is just what one looks like that we've downloaded off the internet. So this is something that you file every year, so you should be familiar with this. The next item will be the evidence of the current annual report filed with the Attorney General of the Commonwealth. Well, this you have two options of submitting. There's the actual report or the letter that you receive back saying that you have. So here's the actual report, and then if you scroll down, Kate, it'll show us the letter. So then you could either submit one or the other of those, or you can submit both. Next would be the current filing of your IRS 990 form, which is your tax return. And lastly is your financials. So there are three options of financials you can submit. We will show you one variation of that, the audit. All right, so there are different types of financial reporting requirements depending on how much federal funding you receive. If you receive $750,000 of federal funding in 1 year, you have to have an A133 audit done by a CPA. And that's a very specific type of audit. If you get less than that, we'd still need you to have audited financial statements prepared by a CPA. If this is your first time applying, you can just submit a profit and loss that you can print out of Quicken or QuickBooks, whatever you might use. Oh, and I forgot the very most important one. You have to prove to us that you are a 501c3, so we need a copy of your designation letter. So all of the applicants must be a certified 501c3. So you just provide the letter that you've received from the Internal Revenue. Okay, so,
And all these things are listed on the application.
yes, these are all listed on the actual application, so
Now you get to write about
just,
it.
and once you've submitted your application, Marisol reviews every application once the deadline has passed and looks to make sure that everything is in order, everything's been submitted. So we're not going to sign this now, but once you've completed this application, you're going to print this out and your executive director is going to sign and date this page. There are two places that need to be signed. This very first page and the very last page. So make sure that you make note of that. Okay, so the next thing is your brief project description. So this is one sentence. It can be a really long sentence, which we understand that also you really want to get the message out about how great your application project is. So this is your elevator pitch. If you only had one sentence to sell your project, this is a sentence. Now, the advisory board that's made up of volunteers appointed by the mayor to review all these applications, this is what they get. So this sentence is really important. They get this one sentence that tells them everything they need to know before they even look at your application. So put a lot of thought and effort into this. So our sentence is, after school homework help provides homework assistance provides homework assistance to students in grades 2 to 4 by high school students who are hired as homework helpers Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. So you just want to concisely explain what this project is. Okay, now we come to our budget. This always trips people up. This is my kind of favorite thing. I'm a numbers person. I'm the finance manager, so this is my wheelhouse. So to run our project, we need certain things. We need people, we need supplies, we need space, we may need transportation. So this is where you're going to put all of that information. So our first category will be supplies. And I would like $2,000 from CDBG. And then on the leverage funds, I have $500. And my leverage funds are from ABC Foundation. And then our total funds are $2,500. So total funds is the amount of CDBG and leverage funds. So leverage funds are other funds you're going to use to run this project. Our next will be salary. $8,000 of CDBG. And I have $24,000 of leverage funds. And that's from a youth grant. And that total is $32,000. And our next item is going to be rent. No CDBG. $6,000, I'm sorry. And this is in kind. 6,000. So then I'm going to go down to the bottom, and we're going to put total CDBG request, which is the total of that column, which is $10,000. It's very important that that number matches the amount you put on the first page, your cover page. That is $30,500. Our total is 40,500. So let's talk a little bit about the leverage funds. Leverage funds can be either cash that you have from another foundation or grant, or it can be in kind. So in my particular project, Lawrence Public Schools is very nicely allowing us to run our operation out of one of their schools. So that's an in-kind donation of rent. So in-kind really has to be something reasonable. It's at market value. So if you tell me that you've got some volunteers that are doing some in-kind work on your project, don't tell me that the value of 3 hours of volunteer work is $15,000, because that's not market value. I mean, how much would you actually pay somebody to do this work? That's basically the value of your in-kind. So this is, like I said, an area that trips a lot of people up, the budget. Make sure your numbers add up going forward, backwards, cross, up and down. Okay, on to the next question. So why is this project needed by Lawrence residents? Okay, so here you're going to say how this will serve Lawrence residents. So there's a need for jobs for high school students. In homework assistance has proven to be an effective way to increase students' grades. Better grades will give the students a better chance to further their education and obtain higher paying jobs. So the next question is, how will it meet the need that you've identified? So I've said that high school students need jobs and students need help with homework. So we're going to be creating jobs by hiring high school students and increasing the grades of the students who participate in the program. Of course, you'd like to write a little bit more. I'm just trying to give you an idea of the type of information you're going to put into each of these categories. So how will be a consolidated plan, priority, need, and objective? So one of our objectives was economic development. So this is an economic development project. That provides employment opportunities for youth. So you notice that this not only is meeting one of the national the objectives and priority needs that we have determined in our consolidated plan, it's also one of Mayor Rivera's priorities. So if you've got a program and you can hire youth, you're going to get a little bit higher ranking in the evaluation process. Okay, so the activity description. So you're going to really tell us the meat of your project in this space. You need to tell us if it's a new project, an ongoing project, expanding a project that's that you've had in the past. So this new program will give students in grades 2 to 4 Homework assistance, Monday through Friday, from 3 to 5 p.m. during the school year. High school students will be hired as homework helpers. Each homework helper will work with small groups of students no more than 4 students, but ideally 3 or fewer. We want to identify who will benefit from the proposed activity. We're going to describe the process we will use to identify low-income persons and ensure that we're benefiting low-income persons. So, Lowmont Lawrence youth will be identified by using the city self-declaration form. That will be completed by their parents during the registration process. So you might be saying to yourself, what is this self-declaration form? So this is a form that you will get if you are awarded. You come back to our office for a training, and all these forms will be given to you. They'll be emailed to you as part of your contract. So, determining income eligibility, it's a basic form where the parent fills out, the name, how many people are in their family, there's a chart that they circle, what their family income is, and it asks for some race and ethnic information. So these are something you're gonna have on file.
That's what it looks like.
It's a confidential form. No one sees it but us and you, if you are lucky enough to be funded. We keep them in a locked file cabinet at your office. When we do come out for a site visit, monitoring visit, we'll ask to see those, and that's the only time we ever look at them. And basically, we're just looking at them to make sure that they're eligible participants. We don't take down any information, we don't copy anything, we're just, if you agreed to serve 10 people, we need to make sure that you have 10 eligible forms in your file. Okay, on to our next question. So we want to provide an activity schedule which includes your start, completion dates, and any other significant changes. So, recruitment of homework helpers will begin in August, and hiring and training will happen in September. Enrollment and registration of students will happen from mid-September through the end of September. After-school homework sessions will begin October 1st. The program will end in mid to late June. Depending on when the last day of school is. Students will be required to bring to the session any homework assignments that they receive a grade on so that improvement can be tracked. So basically in this section you want to say when your program's going to start, what's going to happen in the program, when it's going to finish, and if there are any major milestones that you will be reaching. Okay, so the next is talking about the project beneficiaries and national objectives. So this project is located in census tracts 2504 and 2505. And the census tract map was on the city website. So you just need to look where the project is going to happen and determine which census tract your project is in. If you have a question about what census tract your project is in, please contact Marisol. She'll be happy to assist you in determining that. Okay, here's another area where people get a little bit mixed up. So I would say that 99% of you are going to check off the bottom box, which is low mod limited clientele income verification. So that means you're going to have your clients fill out those self-declaration forms. A lot of people check off limited clientele. That's if you're serving a very specific group of people, which are presumed to be low mod. So that's abused children, elderly, battered spouses, homeless, handicapped adults, or illiterate persons. So it's very rare that you would check off limited clientele specific group. Area benefit is if you're doing a project that's going to benefit an entire area. So when we do a park improvement project, that's an area benefit because everybody within the area of that park is benefiting from that project. So like I said, I think 99% of you, if not 100% of you, will check off the income verification. Our project is checked. Okay, so every $1,000 worth of community development block grant funds that you're awarded means you have to serve one person. So if you get $5,000 of CDBG funds, you have to serve 5 people. You can serve more than 5, but you have to serve at least 5. So it's a 1-to-1, $1,000, one person. So we're going to serve 20 people in our project here. And all 20 of ours are going to be low mod. So you are allowed to serve people who are not low mod. We just can't reimburse you for the expenses for those people. And that's a good point that I should have brought up earlier. CDBG is a reimbursable grant. So what that means is you have to pay for the expenses of your project, and then you request a reimbursement under your contract from the city. So you have to have enough cash on hand to be able to pay for this project and then get reimbursed from the city. Okay, so your organizational capacity. This is where you really need to sell your organization. How long have you been in business? Do you have the right people on staff that can run this project? Do they have experience? Do you need to hire people? So this is where we're going to talk about this. So SCM Nonprofit has been in existence since 2002. That's all right. It's the pressure of being on TV. I know it. And it's dark too. Since 2002. It has been operating in the Cape Cod area and expanded to Lawrence in April of 2016. The staff includes an executive director, a deputy director, 6 program directors, associate director? That's not associate, I said deputy, but associate's fine.
Deputy director.
6 program directors. It's a fabulous, wonderful staff. 1 finance director. So this is a really top-heavy organization, if you ask me. And 2 administrative assistants.
No, yeah.
SCM nonprofits, rolling in dough. No. Okay. So under question B, you're going to describe how you've done this type of activity and what the your capacity for success is. So the executive director, deputy director, and program directors all have a master's degree in education. The finance director is a retired CPA. So they're all really smart at this SCM nonprofit too. So SCM has operated a homework help program in the Cape Cod area. Since opening in 2002. Receiver Jeff Riley was so impressed with the success of the program that he recruited SCM to expand into Lawrence. Students who participate in the homework help program improve their grades by a full grade on average. And all students make some improvements. And of course, Jeff Riley didn't really recruit SCM because SCM is a made-up nonprofit. Just to make sure we're clear on that. So then, the next question is identify the persons responsible for the program and financial management of the activity and other persons involved, whether these positions are current, new, or pending this award. So our program managers, Tom Smith, Mary Jones, and Sally Sullivan, will oversee the project. Each is responsible for a different grade, 2, 3, or 4. Dave Cash, the finance director, is responsible for the financial management of the project. These are current employees of SCM. Six to eight high school students will be hired pending this award. That's the joy of a Word document versus a fillable PDF. All set in this section. So now I'm going to identify any other agencies or partners and define the roles and responsibilities of these partners. So Lawrence Public Schools will provide referrals of students to the program. They're also supplying space in one of their schools for the project to happen. So it's always a good idea to talk about partnerships. Partnerships are really important. Takes a village kind of thinking to get a project done. So identifying your partners is really critical in that section. So our next section is to explain how the project is financially feasible and can be implemented in a timely, cost-effective manner within the program year. So our program year is July 1st through June 30th. So the grant that you're applying for would start July 1st of 2018 and run through June 30th of 2019. Okay, so all of the leverage funds have been secured. SCM nonprofit has run a similar program in the Cape Cod area. So it knows what it takes to operate the homework health program. The program runs during the school year, so that falls within the grant year. Our next question is, describe the organization's experience in hiring and employing Lawrence residents in hiring plans with this funding if applicable. So SCM Nonprofit has hired Lawrence residents when it expanded its operations here. Two of the program directors and the administrative assistants in the Lawrence office are Lawrence residents. All of the high school homework helpers to be hired will be Lawrence residents. So here I've said, we have hired Lawrence people already, and this is how I'm going to hire more Lawrence residents using this funding. Okay, now G, we're going to talk about collaboration with any other organizations. So Lawrence Public Schools, which is a great partner to us.
Did you say that Lawrence Public School is a great partner to us?
I'm just kidding. No, don't take on his. Lawrence Public Schools Food Service will provide, at no cost, a snack that the students will have prior to starting their homework help session. Okay, of course, like I said, you're going to want to talk a little bit more in depth in your application. I just wanted to sort of walk through the application. So, now to the very last page.
I don't know.
What it is. Right, can you go to the last page? Not last time. Here we go. So, very last page is the second place that the executive director needs to sign. So, they should read all of these things, which basically says that everything they've submitted is true. So the date and date. Okay, you just put in, you know, there, they've got that in the application. So then we're gonna sign it today, because we're filling it out, so we're gonna fill it out on the 11th day of January 2018. Okay, and you can put SCM nonprofit. I'm going to print this out, and the executive director is going to sign there, and they're going to go back and sign the very first page of the application. Then they're going to hand it back to you, and you're going to make a copy of it. You're going to gather all those documents that we went over at the beginning. You're going to put it in an envelope. You're going to drive over to the Community Development Department office at 225 Essex Street on the 3rd floor. You're going to be there before 3 p.m. on February 2nd, because that's the deadline. If you're there at 3:01, you're out of luck. It's winter, folks. It snows. There's traffic downtown. Sometimes it's hard to find a parking space. Don't wait till February 2nd. Try to get it in as soon as you're comfortable that you're complete. There's another benefit to getting it in early. When you do your presentations before the advisory board on February 12th at South Lawrence East School, the order in which you present is the order in which we receive the applications. So the first person that gets their application in gets to speak first. In first impressions, by the time, the CDAB gets to the end of the night, they're seeing 30 or 40 presentations, they're tired. So it's better to get your stuff in first, so you can...
Start sleeping.
No, I don't let them fall asleep. I keep them right on their toes, don't worry about that. There's no sleeping allowed in my...
We have a bell.
Yeah, we do have a bell because you only have 3 minutes to do your presentation. So after 3 minutes, if you're still talking, the bell's gonna ring and you have to stop speaking.
Right.
So Kate's gonna go over a little bit, very briefly, on some of the reporting requirements that you're signing up for by potentially becoming a sub-recipients under this, and then I'll come back and talk about a little bit more of the timeline of what's coming up.
So, just very briefly, as Sue said earlier about the self-declaration form, you're gonna have to collect those, because as you said, 99% of you are gonna be limited clientele. Also important that you collect them because before we will even pay you, as she said, it's a reimbursable grant, we will go out and do a monitoring visit. And at that monitoring visit, we will count these to make sure you have the appropriate amounts. At least a minimum, say you get a $10,000 grant, you better have at least 10 good self-declaration forms. We always suggest that people collect over and above, just in case some of them are not filled out properly. There's always a missing signature, a wrong address. Somebody didn't fill out all the regional ethnicity information that's further down. And where it's reimbursable, you're going to be out that money until you can come up with those forms. So I always tell people, say you get a $10,000 grant, collect 15 forms. You know, collect as many forms as you want. I only need to look at, 10 good forms, but I'll look at whatever you got. And I touched on the monitoring visit. When you put in your first payment request, Marisol and 99% of the time myself will go out and do a monitoring visit at your site. We'll look at the forms, we'll look at, any leases you have, any canceled checks, things like that. Review all that. Everything that you submit in the application, we're going to review on site.
And that happens before you even get your check. And once you pass that monitoring visit, we will release first payment. And everybody gets monitored. It doesn't matter if it's your first time or it's your 50th time. You're going to get monitored. So if you do get funded, which hopefully, then you will come to a mandatory finance training where we'll really go into depth in all of this. I don't want to, overwhelm people with this stuff because this is if you get funded, you got to do all this other stuff. We're going to have June? In June, we will have a finance training that's mandatory if you've been funded, and we will walk you through all of this stuff. So, that's that.
Okay, so, schedule. If you want to look at page 5 in the instructions. So once you have submitted your application, 3 p.m. happens. We all breathe a sigh of relief on February 2nd. We've got everything organized. Monday morning, we're right at this. So Marisol goes through every application, make sure that they have all the documentation required. We look at, if you have been funded in the past, we look at your capacity. Did you have any monitoring findings? Were you meeting the benchmarks you established in your contract? Did you have significant delays? Things like that. On February 12th, the Community Development Advisory Board is made up of 7 volunteer members appointed by the mayor who make recommendations to him about which projects to fund for the next year. So they've all received a binder, I'm going to say about this thick, with a copy of everybody's application in it. They don't get any of those attachments on the front page, so they don't get your financials, they don't get your board of directors list, they just get the actual application. So they actually read all of the applications and have probably come up with some questions that they're going to want to ask you when you do your presentation. So you'll do your presentation, again, in the order in which the applications are received, 3 minutes, so you should practice in advance being able to get your point across within 3 minutes. 3 minutes sounds like a long time, but it's not. You really have to be concise. And the more concise you are, the smoother the night will go. So after you do your 3-minute presentation and the bell rings, the advisory board then has the opportunity to ask you questions. They may ask you questions, they may not ask you questions. Don't take that as a reflection on your project, your presenter. You might have done such a fabulous job in your application and your presentation that you've answered all the questions that they had. So don't take it one way or the other if they ask you a lot of questions or they don't ask you a lot of questions. It's really not a reflection on your application. So after February 12th, the advisory board then comes back and we'll sit down with the community development team that's here, and they start deliberating the funding. So they go back and forth and recommend, and Kate and I are there making sure that they haven't gone over the amount of money that they're allocated, because they always try to fund way more than we have. We generally get about $800,000 worth of applications, and we only have $210,000 to allocate. So the advisory board has a really difficult, important job to do by seeing which of these projects are going to give the most benefit to the citizens, which are going to really be able to operate within the time frame of the year. And then those are the ones that they make the recommendation to the mayor for. And of course, if you have submitted an application for the two categories that the mayor has prioritized, ESOL classes or youth employment, you get a little bit of extra boost in the discussion. So on February 21st, that's when the advisory board comes to our office and does this deliberation. They make their recommendation to the mayor. Vilma and Marisol will probably go over to the mayor's office and sit down with him and go through the recommendations from the advisory board. Then in April, Vilma and I will appear before City Council. We'll present the budget to them, and generally they ask some questions and they approve it. In the meantime, in the background, we're writing the actual action plan report that has to be submitted to HUD. So there's a lot of background work that goes on between February and in April when this goes to City Council. And there will be a public hearing on the action plan where you could have an opportunity to speak in support of your project, in support of other projects, if perhaps you didn't get funded, but your best friend's project got funded, you could come and speak on that. And hopefully that will happen at the beginning of May. Our plan is due to HUD by May 15th. It's due 45 days before the beginning of our fiscal year. As of this point, we don't know how much money is in the federal budget for us yet. So we're planning an estimated funding of the same amount of money we got last year. So if perchance, after we've done all our deliberations, we find out that we got more money or less money, then we'd have to have the advisory board come back in and redeliberate and go through this process again. So hopefully we'll know before we actually get to City Council what the actual number is, so it makes things a lot smoother. Then, once the City Council has approved the action plan, those of you who are lucky enough to be funded, you'll get a congratulatory letter from the mayor saying you've been funded for this much money, this is when the finance training is, make sure you're there, it's mandatory. And unfortunately, Vilma has the task of sending out, I'm sorry you didn't get chosen for funding this year letters. But unfortunately, not everybody can get funded. It's a finite pot of money that the government lets us use on this type of activity, and we try to use it in the way that's really going to benefit the citizens the best. Okay, now I can open up for questions if people have any questions or comments. Oh, don't be shy. I don't bite generally.
I'm gonna say well explained.
Do you need me? Or did I forget something? No? Okay. All right, well, I guess I'm done. I guess Vilma can come up and wrap us up and we can get you on your way.
So you sure you have no comments? Was it helpful to go through the application? It took a little while, but this was an idea that Sue got this year, that maybe if we do it hands-on, people can actually visualize it and get a sense of, oh, okay, that now I have a sense of how to answer those questions. I think that was helpful. And I hope you find it helpful as well, and those who are going to see the video too. So you have dates, right? What's the date? What's the most important date you have? February 2nd, because that's... No. Wait a minute. Before. This is your test. So February 2nd by 3, so considering it's winter time, get there before that. And what's the benefit of getting there before?
You all first.
You present first. And what is the benefit of presenting
You
first?
got the money first.
That's not it. It's just that's the order you're going to be presenting when you go on February 12th.
Right.
All right? And that's going to be at the South Lawrence East, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Auditorium.
In the auditorium. So, did you have a question?
So the application must be submitted in person.
Yes.
Yes. No electronic submissions. Yes. Nope. That is it.
She mentioned something like that you have to do one original and one copy.
Yes.
Two different envelopes.
No, the same envelope.
One envelope, one original, one copy.
And all those attachments.
And the attachments. And keep a copy for yourself. I mean, important. Of the whole package. So you know next year if you reapply, you have, you can cheat, right? You know the order. All right. And then when does this enter into effect? If you get funded, when do you start? When does the program start?
July
First.
2018
Yes.
to June 2019.
All right. And then,
Very good students
I
tonight.
know, right? And then if you have any feedback, there's a public hearing at City Council that you are welcome to attend to share your thoughts, and that is around May 1st. So you can always ask the team, anyone from the team, primarily Marisol, if you have any questions about dates. So with that, we are wrapping up our workshop. I hope that you found this information helpful. I hope that you really consider applying for an amazing program that benefits the people that we need to, support, which is low to moderate income. And if you have any questions between here and now, when is the very last day that people can ask questions? People can ask questions all the way up to the date? Yes. So ask questions early. It's a question. Ask questions early. And something happened for another project. So sometimes you have an application that's complete and you want to bring it over for us to review it. Really, it's very difficult for us to do that. We can tell you what needs to be in the application. We can give you a sense of whether or not the application fits the category, meets the requirements, but we cannot tell you this is a good application or this is a bad application. And so just so you know, that is the reason why we have to really be very objective, very neutral throughout the process.
Oh, can I add something to
Yep.
that? When the advisory board is doing their deliberations, we do not participate in those deliberations at all. They could ask us a question if we know something about your organization or if you've had a project, but it's all them back and forth. They make all the decisions. We have no input into that at all.
We cannot say, yes, we know si se puede and they're awesome. No. All right, if you have no more questions, thank you so very much for being here tonight. You have our numbers, you have the information, you can go on the website, ask questions. Marisol Colon is really helpful. She's been doing this for a long time. And hopefully we'll have good news, right? So thank you very much.
And I just wanted to mention, Marisol asked me to kind of put up the procedure timeline.
Yes.
We'll go over that more at the finance training if you're funded, but that gives you an idea of how long it takes us to get through the contract process. It's a couple of months long. We have to go through a whole signature process at City Hall, all kinds of legal documents we have to do
Before it kicks off.
before it kicks off.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.